Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the MetaStellar YouTube channel. We're here to talk about the 10 free best science fiction and fantasy books on Amazon today. And the number one best-selling free sci-fi book on Amazon is a hard sci-fi story with space battles and alien invaders that's set on a space station that might remind you a little bit of Babylon 5 or Deep Space Nine. But before we get to that, I have 9 other books to get through on today's top 10 list. You see, every single Friday, the team here at MetaStellar reads the first few chapters of every book on Amazon's top 10 list. Today, I was helped Today, I was helped out by news editor Alex KOROLOV and community members Tim McHugh and LILIVETTE Dominguez-TORRES. Hi, guys. Tim, LILIVETTE, thank you for joining me here today. It's their first time here, folks. So they're new volunteers on our MetaStellar team. We're always looking for volunteers, so hit me up. My email's in the description box below. LILIVETTE is a book editor with degrees in publishing and literature. She's also helping us with marketing. And boy, we need that. So thanks, LILIVETTE, for joining us. And Tim is a science fiction and fantasy author, and his short story, A Voice for the Scavengers, was published in MetaStellar last month. And both of them are also helping judge our spring submissions. So this month, from March 1st to March 31st, we're accepting original short fiction of 1,250 words or less, 1,200 words or less. We pay 8 cents a word on acceptance. We've already had more than 100 stories submitted, even though we just went live a couple of days ago. And you have until the end of the month to submit. If you do, your story will be in our next anthology. Well, not on the next anthology. We are putting that together right now, but in our third anthology. Our first anthology is out there and available for people to buy in both print and electronic form. And I thought I had a little, oh, I do. Look at that. Here it is, little cover mock-ups in all the formats, and it's available from all the major bookstores. Okay, so welcome, LILIVETTE. Welcome, Tim. Thank you for joining me here today.
Hey, Maria. Thanks for having us.
Hi, thank you.
I like to talk. Yes. All right. So today's top 10 list includes a modern-day rock band mysteriously transported to a medieval fantasy world, a cyberpunk grandpa, a swashbuckling bounty hunter searching for a magical object, and a disgraced Space Navy officer who has to save humanity from an alien menace. The link to the article and to all the books is in the description box below. I've also included the link to Tim's story, so check that out. For those who are new, MetaStellar is an online magazine of speculative fiction, and all the content is always free to our readers. We publish original short fiction, reprints, excerpts, essays, and lots of book reviews, like this one. We are able to do this and keep all our content completely free thanks to our Patreon supporters. Thanks, guys. We love you. Okay, so enough about that. Let's get to our free books. So here's book number 10 on the list. It is Daram by Hetty Crane. And I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so you can see it. So there you go. This is the first of 4 books in the Tales from Tychondria time travel fantasy series. The other books are on sale today for 99 cents each, and the series is in Kindle Unlimited. So Kindle Unlimited is where you pay $10 a month and you read all the books you want. It's a great deal if you read more than a couple of books a month, and a lot of bestsellers are in the program. Last time I checked, more than half of the sci-fi bestsellers were in Kindle Unlimited. So it's a really good deal if you read a lot. So, Colin is the lead singer in a successful British art rock band, and he plays the harp a little bit. He's been on a worldwide tour for the past 5 months with his band, and he's hanging out in a cafe, drinking herbal tea, and there's some banter and conversations with his band members, and they have issues about who's doing what, and who's playing practical jokes on who, etc., etc., and a couple of the band members leave to set up for their next concert. And he and his best friend Robin are still there when something weird happens with the mirror on the wall. Instead of showing them their reflection, it shows a mysterious girl in a black cloak who's waving her arms around. and they're very confused about this. And then the mirror goes back to normal. So Colin thinks that maybe it was an angel because he's all artsy-fartsy. And Robin thinks that it's a trick that the other band members played on them. So then we switch in the next chapter to the point of view of the mysterious girl from the mirror. Her name is Manon, and she's in a forest wearing formal court clothes because she has to get some kind of festival. And she's in a forest because she wants to practice her sorcery in peace. And she's just been named to a high position in this kingdom. And she's about to start hobnobbing with royalty. And there's all kinds of politics, and we get a lot of backstory of her politics, and she talks with her friends about all this. A lot of narration there about what's going on in this kingdom. And then we go back to the band, and they're getting ready for the performance, and there's a thunderstorm, and things happen. Anyway, the whole band in the middle of their set is transported into this medieval kingdom, and they're in the middle of the festival in front of this medieval fantasy world audience, and things start going wrong, obviously. Of course they do. So kind of a King Arthur, Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's court kind of story with some time travel, but also there's magic in it, and it's a rock band instead of whoever the Connecticut Yankee was. So I like the premise, but the book starts out really, really slowly, and there's a lot of backstory. I personally didn't feel a connection to any of the characters. I guess I'm not that big a fan of rock stars, so I'm not going to stick with it, but a lot of people love it. It's definitely very readable. All right, so let's go back to the list to number 9. It's the Cyberpunk Grandpa book. It's called Grandfather Anonymous by Anthony Eichenlaub, the first of 5 books in the Old Code Techno Thriller series. The other books are $5 to $6 each, but they're not in Kindle Unlimited. The 5th book isn't out yet, but you can pre-order it. So the author has been on this list several times before. So Alex KOROLOV read this one, and he says that he's not going to be sticking with it because it's not really his cup of tea. But if you're into computer hackers and people fighting an oppressive government that spies on them, this might be your cup of tea. So the story takes place in a not too distant future where computers are a bit more advanced than they are now, and everyone's under surveillance of the government. And in the first chapter, we meet Ajay Anderson, a 70-year-old man, and he's a bit of a computer hacker. And a social worker shows up to check on him. Apparently, the entire neighborhood's been having network connectivity issues, and the social worker is checking every house to see if anyone has an illegal scrambler. AJ doesn't have an illegal scrambler, but he does have an illegal mini quantum computer in his house, so he doesn't let the social worker in. He doesn't want his tech to be discovered, and gets the social worker to go away. But before the guy leaves, he warns AJ that the authorities are also looking for a fugitive named Sashi Chandrakar, who stole something very important. And it turns out she's AJ's daughter. And she has her 2 granddaughters on the run with her. And so then in the next chapter, the daughter shows up and her 2 kids are with her. And they haven't seen each other for many years, and it's not the happiest reunion. So Alex says this is as far as he read because he didn't really get pulled into the story. But if that's the kind of thing that you're interested in, the book is free. All right. Then we go on to book number 8 on our list, Smitten by Magic by Erica Ridley, the 3rd of 3 books in the Magic and Mayhem paranormal romantic comedy series. The other books are $7 and $4 each, but they're all in Kindle Unlimited. And I actually reviewed the first book in the series, Kissed by Magic, in January. So I did not want to read the 3rd book because I like the first book, but I haven't read the 2nd book yet. So I don't want to spoil it for myself, and I don't want to spoil it for you. So I'm going to give you a recap of the first book in the series, Kissed by Magic. And I was sold from the first paragraph. The protagonist is Lance, a swashbuckling bounty hunter and soldier for hire. He lives above a pawn and potion shop, it's open 24 hours, and it's really dingy, and it's tucked between two steel and glass skyscrapers, because this is the modern world, but a fantasy take on our modern world that has magic in it. And so the magic showed up 5 decades ago. And so now the store's fluorescent open sign is powered by an enchantment. And there's all kinds of magical shenanigans happening. And it's a lot of fun. So there's pirates in this world and all kinds of magical objects. And there's a mythical golden bloom of eternal youth that Lance is looking for that could bring him millions or even billions of dollars, that's hidden in a mysterious castle that he wants to go after. It's a fun and lighthearted narrative. I love the style. I love the banter between Lance and his landlord. And I adore the world building. So, for example, in this world, spell books have been made obsolete by digital readers. And the pawn shop has a stack of old paper spell books that they can't even give them away. So I love those kind of little flavors. And so I recommend this book highly. And pick up the first one. It's a Kindle Unlimited. And then pick up the third one. It is free. Then we have The Shadow Order by J.S. Malcom, the first book of a 5-book series called The Crossroads Witch, an urban fantasy series. The other books are $1 to $4 each, and they're all in Kindle Unlimited. The author has been on this list a lot before, and this particular book we reviewed back last July. I'm the one who reviewed it. And it's about Amaya, who's 22, works at a convenience store restocking the shelves, and she lives at a mental health facility because 6 years ago she was found wandering around by herself with no memory of anything. And finally, she's been deemed healthy enough to participate in a work release program and is kind of out on her own again. But she still sees imaginary creatures. So there's a problem there mental health wise. Meanwhile, there's a string of creepy murders happening in the city. People randomly turn on their loved ones and kill them, then claim to have no memory of what happened. The only thing they do remember is the word lacrimore. And so Amaya is now ready to graduate from the mental health facility and to move to a halfway house. But that same night, as she's going to move out, the fire alarm goes off, some nurses are dead, and Amaya sticks out her hands and energy flows out of them and breaks down doors, and a doctor runs at her with a bloody knife. All sorts of mayhem is happening. And outside, the cops tell her to stop, but for some reason she uses her powers on them to shove them away, and she runs off. So they chase her into an alley, and a portal appears, and 2 women are inside the portal, and one of them tells our protagonist to jump into the portal, and she does. So that's a kind of exciting, fun beginning, but I'm not really the target audience for the story. It's a young adult story. I hate young adults. It's told in the first person in the present tense, which I personally don't like. So I didn't get caught up in the book or with the main character, but I can see why people like it. It's very easy to read. It's very fast-paced. The main character is nice and snarky, which I like, and the writer has a good sense of humor. Always a plus in my book. Okay, then we have a book that LILIVETTE read. Cursed with a Dragon Prince by Mel Braxton, the prequel to the Isles of Fae romantic fantasy series, which currently only has 1 book in it. So, LILIVETTE, what did you think of this book?
Okay, so I actually thought it was pretty good, or at least better than I expected. It's only 167 pages, but I think it's pretty good. It has potential. So, in this book, we follow the story of Reina, who is our main character. She's a woman that wakes up stranded on an island, and the author doesn't really say her age, but she gives you enough background information to know that she was married for 10 years. So you can take a guess that she's like 20 or in her 30s. And she is stranded on this island, and she doesn't really know where she's at until a dragon starts chasing her, and she realizes that she is in the Isles of Fae, which is far away from her human village and far away from the people she used to call her family. And after that, she gets chased by this dragon until she managed to. I mean, she doesn't get away from him, but she kind of interacts with him in a way, and he shifts back, and she realizes that he has a birthmark on his neck, and that's similar to her own birthmark. The thing that made her stand out in her village and considered to be cursed. And after that, she runs away from him because she doesn't understand what's happening. And she makes it into this cave where she eventually gets lost and falls asleep because she was tired of all the running, all the stress. And there she sees like a mythical dragon in her dreams. And that dragon says that she can help her. And when she wakes up, she realizes that there are like fireflies around the cave, lighting their way. So I think those first 3 chapters are pretty intriguing, and they definitely left me wanting to read more.
All right. Okay, so let's move on to the 5th book on our list, The Nexus by Vered Ehsani. Let me make that a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. Okay, so this is the first book in the Into the Afroverse series, and there aren't any other books in the series yet. And I read the description, and it kind of sounded a bit like Wakanda Forever, and I'm a huge fan of the Black Panther, so I was kind of excited for it. And I was not disappointed. So it starts out with Dr. Hannah Baines, a researcher hiking up the second tallest mountain in Africa, Mount Kenya, in search of the mythical Mlezi village. And she's got a security team with her full of mercenaries. And so they're looking for a type of some kind of magic mushroom, like literally magic. It gives people magical powers. But when they get to the village, they find that the mushrooms have all been burned, and so has the village, and the inhabitants have scattered. The only person still there is Swala, one of the inhabitants of the village. And we switch to Swala's point of view, and she's staying in a forest, and she's looking over this village, horrified by the fact that they had to burn it down to keep the magic mushroom safe from these invaders. And she's holding her young daughter in her arms, and her daughter is going to be the future chief of the village. So she stayed a little too long because the mercenaries spot her, and she runs into the forest, and the mercenaries chase her. So she has magic powers that she gets from the mushrooms, and she can feel the mercenaries closing in. She knows she's not going to get away, and so she decides to save her daughter. And she finds a place for to put her daughter where somebody who's not a member of her village is going to find her and raise her. And then she's attacked. She herself is attacked by the mercenaries. So I love the beginning of this book, full of action. I love the characters, and I love the premise. So the daughter has a spell put on her that she's not going to remember what happened until she's old enough, to know. So I love everything about this book, and I plan to keep reading it. All right, next we have book number 4, The World After by Lindsey Pogue and Lindsey Sparks, which is the prequel to the Ending Legacy, a fantasy romance series, which also has only 1 book in it. And both of these authors have been on our list before multiple times. And Tim read this book. Tim, you like fantasy, you write fantasy. What did you think of this book?
Yeah, so I'm always a fan of the dystopian science fiction world, and World After has a bit of that, and it's got a little bit of a fantasy twist mixed into it, which, makes me the target audience for this one. So this story is set up in this unique post-apocalyptic California, but we are 300 years past the apocalypse, and a new world has begun to take shape. So the world is currently ruled by the Corvo Kingdom and this queen who is very clever and has sort of shady, unclear motivations. So she rules over all the people in this kingdom, and that includes these groups of gifted people who have supernatural powers that are known as abilities. So also in this kingdom are groups of outcasts who were forced into hiding by the Queen's Rangers, and they hide in the redwood forests of California. And we also have some animals mixed in who can communicate with certain humans. So there's a lot of sort of fantasy stuff built into this sci-fi world, which is done pretty well by these authors. The story starts with a man named Jake, and he's established one of these colonies of outcasts in the forests of California. And he's finally found his semblance of peace in his life. We don't really know what's been going on through his life, but it sort of starts out he's in this peaceful place with his community. But that peace is abruptly interrupted when a group of rangers sent by the queen ambush a group from his community. They kill most of them, but leave one alive to give Jake a message that this was not a random act of violence, but an invitation for him to come to the queen. And he doesn't hesitate to turn himself in. After seeing a glimpse of Jake, we jump to the point of view of Dell. And Dell is actually the princess of the Corvo Kingdom, and she's the heir to her mother's throne. And Dell has one of these special abilities. She's known as an empath, which is a person who can touch animals, humans, or even objects. And she can learn their thoughts, their feelings, their histories, and gain insights just by touching them. So Dell has been suspicious of her mother for a long time now, and she's been feeling the supernatural calling to the castle's secret vaults. So she breaks into the vaults one night and goes through these ancient artifacts until she finds this old book that's been calling out to her. And this book was written by Zoe. Zoe was the first empath, and this by touching the book, she gets a glimpse of the first group of people who had abilities, and they're known as patrons. So the first for each unique ability is a patron. The book is cut off before Dell can learn too much about Zoe and the other patrons' lives, but she does connect with her through her ability, and she can understand Zoe's life, and she can feel the love that she had for her husband, who was the first healer patron, and his name turned out to be Jake. So as Dell is leaving this vault, she accidentally touches another object, and it gives her another glimpse of this horrible scene. There are human beings being tortured and drained of their blood for some unknown reason. And through her ability, she feels that it's the queen who ordered this. So this sort of gives us the first glimpse into the mystery surrounding the queen. And Dell is the person, so even though she's her daughter, she's the person who's trying to unravel this. So the first two chapters, they set up this interesting story. We have multiple protagonists, some with unique abilities, and then we have a good mystery surrounding this kingdom's ruler. I'm really intrigued by the premise. A fantasy world in a sci-fi setting is something that I haven't seen before, and I think the authors do a good job with it. The writing is good for the most part, but the authors, they do have a habit of spelling things out for the reader, things that can be easily inferred from the context and dialogue, and that's kind of a pet peeve of mine. They're also drawn to doing info dumps, just dumping paragraphs of information on us, and that just pulls me out of the story. My last complaint about them is that they do have some corny romance scenes at the beginning, and that did not do much to pull me in. But anyway, this book's about 200 pages, so it's a pretty quick read. So despite any complaints I had, I'm going to stick with it over the weekend. The world's really interesting, and I want to see what happens with all this mystery. So I'm not going to let a few flaws ruin the book for me. And I suggest you pick it up.
Well, what's flawed to one person is a feature to another. So
Exactly.
All right, let's get on to book number 3 on our list. And it is Scarlight by Evie Marceau. The first of 3 books in the Castles of the Eyrie fantasy romance series. The other books are $5 each, and the series is not in Kindle Unlimited. So the setting here is a typical fantasy kingdom. And it starts out with a 6-year-old girl, Bryn. She's the youngest princess in her kingdom, and there's a big festival going on, and she hides under a giant oak table, and she overhears her father's guards talking about how they're going to go and kill a black fawn that's in the forest. The black fawn is supposed to be an omen of war, so they want to kill it before people panic. So she decides, because she's 6, that she's going to save this fawn. She sneaks out to the kitchen, puts on a pair of boots, grabs a lantern, and heads out into the woods, where she knows she's not supposed to go by herself because, she's 6. And she finds the fawn. It's been attacked by wolves, and those same wolves turn on her. And then a boy in a bearskin cloak, one of the princess of one of the visiting groups that's there, they're from another kingdom, the Bear Kingdom, and the boy saves her. And they both wind up scarred by the wolves. Her scars are on her rib cage, and his scars are on his face. So, and according to the rules of this other kingdom, if you save somebody's life, you own them. So she freaks out a little bit about this. She doesn't want the Bear Kingdom to take her. But her parents, negotiate stuff. They smooth it all out. And the people from the Bear Kingdom go away. And she never sees them again. Until 10 years later, she's getting ready to, she's getting dressed for a dance. And the people from the Bear Kingdom show up, including the youngest prince, who's now all grown up and manly and handsome, except for those scars. But if it wasn't for the scars, he'd be super handsome. And her mother wants her to marry off some rich baron, but she has this connection to the prince, and he feels a connection to her, and the usual. So I'm not the target audience of this book. I don't like forbidden love. I don't like destined love. I don't like any love. And I really hate teenagers. So, so I'm not going to be sticking with it. But I do have to say it's extremely well written. I mean, it's very readable. There's a reason it's number 3 on today's list. And if I was stuck in a hotel room on a rainy weekend and the book was there, I'd read it. Sure, why not? And you can pick it up. Link in the description box below. Then we have Phoenix Down by Brooke Hatchett, which is the one and only book in the Naturalist fantasy series. But since it's numbered and it's a series, maybe more books will be showing up later. So this story reminded me of Pratchett's We Free Men books, the ones with Tiffany Aching, or of Howell's Moving Castle. So that kind of fantasy, fairy tale, young reader kind of style. And you can tell by the cover, too, that it's aimed at that general audience. So the protagonist is Remy, who's a boy who works in a shop that doesn't just sell groceries. It also sells magical items from like a secret storeroom in the back. And in order to buy one of those magical items, you have to give the password, and the owner will take you to the back and sell you those secret forbidden magical items. And one day, a couple of strangers drive up on a sleigh pulled by magic horses. And clearly they're very wealthy because they can afford to have legal magic horses and, obviously have them. So one of them is the prettiest girl Remy has ever seen. And he can't tell if she's younger or older than him. So she's about the same age, but she's a couple of inches taller because, girls grow up faster than boys do. But he's paralyzed with shyness, hides behind the counter, hopes they won't talk to him. And then his boss comes out from the back where he's been helping a customer. And the new customers know the secret code, and they want to buy one of the magic special items that the shop carries. And the boss refuses to admit that he carries anything illegal because he doesn't know these people. I mean, sure, they know the password, but they could be anybody. So then the girl comes right out and says it. she wants a tear from a phoenix. So like a teardrop, like, you know, when the bird is crying. So there's a legend that a single tear from a phoenix can cure any ailment. And apparently she's dying. So the boss still says, nope, never heard of him. And so they leave. And after they're gone, it's time for Remy to do his other chores. He goes down to the basement, rolls aside a ratty barrel, pries open a stone, lifts a section of the floor, heaves open a metal door, climbs down a ladder into this tunnel, puts on a special pair of sandals to keep his feet from burning, and a pair of goggles to keep from going blind, packs wax into his ears, and then goes through a tunnel, and at the end of the tunnel, there's cages with 3 phoenixes in them. And he gives them water and feeds them gold dust, gold shavings on a really, really long spoon. So the book reminds me of Terry Pratchett or Diana Wynne Jones. Not quite as funny or as charming, but definitely close to that. So I might stick with it, but there's a space opera I want to get to first. And before we get to that space opera, the #1 book on today's list, I want to thank our Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. The link to the Patreon is in the description box below. All the donated money goes to pay for original speculative fiction and to support new and emerging authors. So you guys rock. You're great. Thank you so much. And now let's get to the #1 book on today's sci-fi and fantasy bestseller list on Amazon. This is the first of 6 books in the Descendants of War space opera series. The other books are on sale today for 99 cents each. And on top of that, the whole series is in Kindle Unlimited. So, score. And I really wanted to like this book because, I mean, it's got everything I like. You know, aliens, space battles, space stations, you know, all my favorite things. But, you know, there was a prologue, and it was a long prologue about stuff that happened 1,000 years ago. The aliens fought the humans. The aliens almost killed all the humans. Then the humans found the aliens' home planet and almost killed all the aliens, but some aliens escaped. So a lot of backstory. And then after that, after that long exposition, in the first couple of chapters, when our protagonist, Commander Dalton Reeves, is battling some pirates out in space somewhere, because that's what he does. He's in a human navy, and he's, you know, fighting pirates. He disobeys orders. He follows the pirates across the, you know, border into territory of one of the kind of friendly alien species. He boards the ship along with, you know, his team. Himself engages in hand-to-hand combat with alien pirates, and then one of his officers steals some of the contraband the pirates were carrying. I mean, this guy is just really, really, really bad at his job. I mean, he's lucky, and the action sequences were good. I always like fictional murder and mayhem, but that's not how you're supposed to act if you're in the military. You know, follow orders, you know, follow all this other stuff. So a lot of tropes here that I don't like the guy who follows his own gut instincts and ignores all the rules. There's a reason for the rules, because of idiots who follow their instincts and wind up creating giant messes. I mean, he knew the pirate ship was trying to lure him into this other territory in order to create a, you know, international disaster, which is, you know, what happened. So, another thing that I hated, the author uses the word smirk. Personal pet peeve. I hate the word smirk. And then the author uses the word quip. Nobody says that in real life. Nobody says, oh, no, never mind, I was just quipping. Nobody says that. I hate that word. So anyway, I mean, I hated everything about this book. But then the captain, Reeves, he gets called in by his boss, who's apparently has been covering his ass for the previous 5 years, and she can't cover for him anymore. His incompetence has caught up with him. the latest international incident he causes big enough that he's either going to be sent to command Concord Station for 5 years or get kicked out with a dishonorable discharge. He says he'd rather spend the 5 years in a jail cell, but yeah, he got what he deserved, finally. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this jerk redeem himself. And this Concord Station is the armpit of the universe. It's lawless. It's a mess. There's a reason nobody wants to serve there. It's a punishment detail. So I'm looking forward to seeing him suffer on the station, try to turn the station around, and there's an alien invasion coming. So that's going to happen too. So I'm like caught up in this at this moment. I'm going to stick with this book. All right. And that is it for today's top 10 list. So if you don't want to miss any of these, subscribe. We have a newsletter that you can sign up for. The link is in the description box below. I think YouTube has a subscription thing and a bell because we do this every single Friday. So you get your free reading for the weekend. And who could say no to that? All right. So I want to thank LILIVETTE and Tim for joining me here today. And thank you, all of you guys, the audience. That's why we're doing it, for you. Thanks for joining us here, and I'll see you all next Friday. Bye, everybody.